4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
On the 5th of June 2024, Boeing spacecraft Starliner launched from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. NASA's Wilmore and Sunita Williams, both astronauts, had headed to the ISS for what was initially meant to be a 9-day mission.
Wilmore on your left and pilot Williams to your right.
Though Starliner did dock successfully, it began to develop glitches. This included helium leaks as well as thruster failures. Initial delays of 3 to 4 days kept getting extended. In the month of August last year, it was decided that both Williams and Wilmore will have to return on a spacecraft other than Starliner. The uncrewed Starliner returned to the White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico in September last year.
You know, we're certainly looking at Starliner very carefully. We're in the process of looking at that vehicle, looking at the helium system. We've got some candidate seals that we're going to replace. We'll get into some testing here over the summer timeframe with what we call an integrated doghouse at White Sands. So we're looking at that. You know, the thing I think back of this whole timeframe is how really resilient Butch and Sunny were the whole time. I mean, they launched on what was going to be a short test flight with the crew flight test vehicle with Boeing, and then they moved very quickly into station increment operations, and they became seamlessly part of the International Space Station. And they did that because they're experienced astronauts, and we had prepared, right? We had flown gloves for them to do spacewalks, and we had flown a lot of components for them. So I think that shows the adaptability of crew members.
But both Wilmore and Williams soon had company. Later in September 2024, NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbanov arrived at the ISS on the SpaceX Dragon Freedom Crew 9.
NASA's SpaceX Crew 4 mission. It was subsequently used for 2 private spaceflight missions to 28th. So, yeah, a little bit about the Dragon Freedom capsule. Here, a view that we have.
Pacific time this afternoon, so less than 10 minutes from now. Continuing to get some views inside when some of those communications happen. That's because we want to make sure that we are relaying the best information to you all.
Alexander Gurbanov and Nick Hague, that is a touchscreen. It allows the crew to monitor a depressurization event for Dragon. So there we can see those screens I was talking. NASA's SpaceX Crew 4 mission. It was subsequently used for 2 private spaceflight missions to 28th. So, yeah, a little bit about the Dragon Freedom capsule. Here, a view that we have.
Pacific time this afternoon, so less than 10 minutes from now. Continuing to get some views inside when some of those communications happen. That's because we want to make sure that we are relaying the best information to you all.
Alexander Gurbanov and Nick Hague, that is a touchscreen. It allows the crew to monitor a depressurization event for Dragon. So there we can see those screens I was talking.
A Crew 10 mission was launched on the 14th of March this year, and it successfully docked at the ISS. On the 18th of March, Crew 9 undocked from the ISS with 4 astronauts on board, including Wilmore and Williams, beginning what would be a 17-hour journey back to Earth.
Freedom SpaceX on the Big Loop. Final reconfigurations for undock complete and nominal. Houston and Hawthorne teams have pulled go for undock sequence start at 0500 Zulu. I'm looking for you to confirm visors down and crew are ready for undock and departure at the planned time.
And we did just hear confirmation that the team in Mission Control and the team in Hawthorne did pull go for undocking. We might hear some continued communications.
Freedom. Visors are down and we are go for undock at the planned time.
SpaceX copies. Crew are configured for undock.
And so that was the voice of NASA astronaut Nick Hague, who is the commander of Dragon, giving the confirmation that they heard the go. So good news, we are continuing to progress down the timeline today for an undocking at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time.
Interestingly, if one focuses on technicalities, Williams and Wilmore were not exactly stranded in space. This is an operational hazard for astronauts, and it is not necessarily considered working overtime for someone who at the end of the day is a federal government employee in the United States.
At a game in person rather than just like hearing them on the internet. Have you missed anything, or is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, it is definitely different. You know, I have my, Patriot shirt while I'm up here and stuff like that as well. And I have a Red Sox spring training. Hopefully I'll be home before that happens, but you never know. So I have my attire up here, which, if you're going to a game in New England, you're going to be all decked out. So trying to keep up with the Joneses this way, but it's just not the same. You don't have the excitement of the crowd, and all of that as well up here. But, we have a great crew. Everybody's into sports. We actually set up a big screen the other day so we could watch football on the weekends, college football, and then the NFL right outside our crew quarters where we can hang out together. So it gives a little bit of that feeling, but it's not the same as feeling the cold air of fall football and all the sports networks talking about it and being right up to date.
Yeah, that sounds very different, but like we love a Boston sports fan even off of Earth. I know you're far away, but how far away are you right now from planet Earth?
We're actually not that far, and it just talks to the atmosphere, right? We're only about 250 miles orbiting the planet, so it's just between Boston and New York, right? So it's not really that far, but that's all the atmosphere we have on this big, huge planet, so we have to take care of it. But right now, just because you asked, we're somewhere between South America and Africa, making our way up through the middle of Africa. Should be a really cool pass to look out the window. So we get a view of the planet all over the planet while we're just at 250 miles above the Earth.
Nice. And how fast are you moving right now?
So we're traveling around 17,500 miles an hour. It takes about an hour and a half to go around the planet. So we get, like I said, a lot of views. The Earth orbit, rotates underneath us, and so we see different parts of the planet as we're going around, obviously.
But that doesn't mean that it was not an ordeal. Williams and Wilmore, throughout the period of 9 months that they were at the ISS, would send videos, updates, celebrate Christmas as well as Thanksgiving aboard the International Space Station and show the rest of the world that they continue to keep their spirits up despite the excruciating wait.
Up on the International Space Station, there's 7 of us up here, and so we're going to get to enjoy company together. And one of the best things that I like about Christmas is the preparation and just getting ready, the anticipation, everybody getting together and preparing stuff and just getting ready for the holiday. And a couple little things we have here with us to just prepare, which will be sort of fun in a couple days.
In Christmas time, the holiday season, it's about spending time with friends and family and loved ones.
And Christmas is synonymous with food and feasting. And boy, do we have a feast packaged up here.
So from all of us to all of you, Merry Christmas! Greetings from the International Space Station. I'm NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, and I want to extend my warmest wishes for a happy Diwali to everyone celebrating the Festival of Lights today at the White House and around the world. This year, I have the unique opportunity to celebrate Diwali from 260 miles above the Earth on the ISS. On this day, I specifically think about my father, who immigrated to the U.S. from India. He kept and shared his cultural roots by teaching us about Diwali and other Indian festivals. Diwali is a time of joy as goodness in the world prevails. I am so thankful to have grown up in a multicultural household where our parents encouraged us to seek opportunities and reach for the stars. Thank you to the President and the Vice President for celebrating Diwali with our community today and for recognizing the many contributions of our community. Greetings from the International Space Station. Our crew up here just wanted to say Happy Thanksgiving to all our friends and family who are down on Earth and everyone who is supporting us.
Thanksgiving is typically a holiday where family and friends get together. Sometimes that can't happen to physically be around each other, but today's age, you can virtually tie in to your family and friends.
And one of those big traditions is having a Thanksgiving meal together. And so we're going to celebrate that tradition up here, though our meal may look a little bit different. Don, if you hold the mic. So we've got a container here of all the things that we're going to enjoy on Thanksgiving. It is a feast. Let me see. We've got Brussels
sardines,
Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, apples and spice,
smoked turkey,
and smoked turkey. It's going to be delicious.
It's true we have much to be thankful for. On a professional sense, I mean, there's not many places that you can be that you can actually lay on the ceiling, and this is one of them. We're thankful for zero gravity. It's fantastic. And of course, in a personal sense, our family, our friends, those that are lifting up prayers for us and have been, we're grateful for that. We're grateful for a nation that is a spacefaring nation that lets us live free, say what we think is important to say, and so many other things. So much to be thankful for in this season, to be reminded of that, to have a holiday that celebrates that, that's something to be thankful for as well. And so from all of us on the International Space Station, Happy Thanksgiving!
But Sunita Williams is a seasoned astronaut. She is an enormously experienced spacewalker, with 9 of them in all, the second most by a woman. Her first trip to the International Space Station was in 2006. In 2007, she would run a marathon, the first by any person in space. In 2015, she became one of the first astronauts who would participate in a US commercial space flight. In 2024, became the first woman to fly on a flight test of an orbital spacecraft.
Just some interesting stats as we go through. Nick and Alexander both spent 171 days in space on this trip, the arrival and departure of 4 different visiting vehicles to the ISS. Butch and Sunny spent 286 days in space, and they got to see 8 different visiting vehicles coming and going from the ISS. Nick and Butch each conducted 1 spacewalk, and Sunny conducted 2. That actually gave Sunny the record for most time on spacewalks by a woman, and puts her 4th overall in terms of time outside doing spacewalks. The crew contributed to more than 150 unique experiments, like Joel said, including stem cell technology to potentially address blood diseases, autoimmune disorders, and cancers.
On her previous trips to the International Space Station, Williams in fact sent an elaborate sequence giving the rest of the world a glimpse of what the ISS actually is like. Williams is of half Indian origin, and she has roots in the state of Gujarat, and she even once unfurled the Indian flag at the ISS.
ગુજરાતની દીકરી અને દીકરી લાંબા સમય સુધી અંતરિક્ષમાં ફસાયા પછી આજે ફરીથી પાછા ધરતી પર ઉતર્યા છે. આપણા માટે ગુજરાતની દીકરી અને ભારતની દીકરી પાછા આવવાથી આપણને ખૂબ આનંદની લાગણી અનુભવું છું અને એમનું સ્વાસ્થ્ય સારું છે ને હવે પણ એમનું સ્વાસ્થ્ય સારું રહે અને એમની મનોકામના બધી જ ભગવાન પૂર્ણ કરે અને બીજા પણ સાથી એમના સાથી પણ પાછા આવ્યા છે એનો પણ આનંદ છે.
In the month of March, Prime Minister Narendra Modi sent his best wishes and on behalf of the people of India wished her a safe return. And when Dragon was on its way back finally, there was a great sense of anticipation in India as well.
And Splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
You know, every single crew member that we fly in orbit, we collect medical research data. We do various blood draws at various times during the flight, especially toward the end. Do bone density measurements in space. We look at their vision and how their vision might change over time, their intracranial pressure. We do all kinds of things. So you're right. Every single astronaut, when they come back, including Nick and Alexander, has participated in all kinds of experiments, and we're learning from all those. And I'll see if Bill has anything to add. we're certainly looking at Starliner very carefully. We're in the process of looking at that vehicle, looking at the Helium system. We've got some candidate seals that we're going to replace. We'll get into some testing here over the summer timeframe with what we call an integrated doghouse at White Sands. So we're looking at that. The thing I think back of this whole timeframe is how really resilient Butch and Sunny were the whole time. I mean, they launched on what was going to be a short test flight with the crew flight test vehicle with Boeing. And then they moved very quickly into station increment operations, and they became seamlessly part of the International Space Station. And they did that because they're experienced astronauts, and we had prepared, right? We had flown gloves for them to do spacewalks, and we had flown a lot of components for them. So I think that shows the adaptability of crew members.
In the United States, Donald Trump lashed out at his predecessor Joe Biden for failing to bring back the two astronauts.
I'm sure that they will see this in space. What is your message?
We love you, and we're coming up to get you, and you shouldn't have been up there so long. The most incompetent president in our history has allowed that to happen to you, but this president won't let it happen. We're going to get them out. We're coming up to get you. I've authorized Elon. I said, can you get them out? Because, they've been left up there. I hope they like each other, but maybe they'll love each other. I don't know. But they've been left up there. Think of it. And I see the woman with the wild hair, a good solid head of hair she's got. There's no kidding. There's no games with her hair.
SpaceX is owned by Elon Musk, who is now the chair of the Department of Government Efficiency in the United States government and is a close aide of the President Donald Trump. The success of this retrieval mission is a significant boost to both as well. At approximately 3:27 a.m. on the intervening night of March 18th and 19th India time, Dragon, after cruising towards Earth, slowed down considerably as it unfurled parachutes that would carry the pod gradually on its way off the coast of Florida in the Gulf of America, or the Gulf of Mexico as it was formerly known, for a splashdown.
And Splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
I also want to thank our partners at the U.S. Coast Guard. They were there on scene, protecting the scene and making sure that it was safe for mariners in the area. Overall, I would say it was a really clean undocking, reentry, and landing. The Dragon vehicle performed extremely well, didn't really have any issues to work. Little things, a GPS outage that we reset a filter on and things like that. Today, the sequence went perfectly. We jettisoned the trunk, executed the deorbit burn, closed the nose cone, and did the entry. You could hear Nick call down when we finally got the vehicle back through the blackout, 4.6 Gs, and you could tell they were doing well, and then braced for the parachute deploy of the drogues and then the mains, and then having splashdown. So parachutes performed well. The whole system worked just as planned. The weekend was culminated today with the landing of Crew 9. We Dragon splashed down at about 5:57 p.m. off the coast of Tallahassee. That's our first commercial crew program landing at Tallahassee. We've had a couple cargo flights land there. And now it's great to have Crew 9 and the Freedom capsule back home, and its fourth flight is now in the history books. Of course, we're overjoyed. I watched every crew member come out of the vehicle today. Post-landing, it was great to watch Nick, Sonny, Butch, and Alexander come out of Dragon and smile and wave as they came out of the vehicle. We'll get them, they're on the ship now, we'll get them back to meet the NASA aircraft and then back to meet with their families.
And what a splashdown it was. In fact, there was a group of dolphins at the site of the splashdown almost welcoming the crew.
Screen, we can see dolphins actually who want to come and play with Dragon. Now, one of the fast boats there in place, working to assist the recovery team member. It's incredible. I just love these views. We really see them even better in daytime, but just seeing the recovery team work in tandem to step through each operation. Obviously they're getting quick assists from the honorary part of the recovery team, those dolphins in the water there. Now the recovery team member that is crawling around the Dragon spacecraft. Earlier we saw a view where it was like a spider monkey pose. We can see that individual now standing in the bucket where the main parachutes were stored while Dragon was on orbit. Obviously, those main parachutes were utilized for splashdown today.
It would be almost an hour after the mandatory checks were conducted that the pod was loaded onto a recovery ship, and then the latch was opened. Stretchers were rolled out to evacuate each of the 4 astronauts one by one.
The spacecraft is going to be performing some safety checks. We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Draco thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach the spacecraft. They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
And Sunita Williams was the last to come out.
Our next crew member here, that is none other than Sunny Williams.
The weekend was culminated today with the landing of Crew 9. We Dragon splashed down at about 5:57 p.m. off the coast of Tallahassee. That's our first commercial crew program landing at Tallahassee. We've had a couple cargo flights land there. And now it's great to have Crew 9 and the Freedom capsule back home, and its 4th flight is now in the history books. Of course, we're overjoyed. I watched every crew member come out of the vehicle today. Post-landing, it was great to watch Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander come out of Dragon and smile and wave as they came out of the vehicle. We'll get them, they're on the ship now, we'll get them back to meet the NASA aircraft and then back to meet with their families.
The world rejoiced and so did India. After all, Sunita Williams has been a regular visitor to this country. Importantly, there are lessons to learn from this experience for India too, as the Indian Space Research Organization is planning India's first manned mission to the International Space Station. It's called Gaganyaan. And this also has huge implications for private sector collaboration and cooperation in the space domain as well. After all, SpaceX is a private venture. Space continues to marvel, it's there to go to, and India too is very much part of that race.
And Splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.